Hello everyone. How are you? Hope you're having an incredible day, and may peace be upon you. Thank you for watching the show. It takes courage with me, your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil, and I tell people it takes balls. And today we're going to be talking about the concept do less better. Do less better. Society, especially, something that I experienced myself when I was growing up recently, there's always this notion in the society that you have to do more, right? You have to do more, and more and more. And I'm thinking, to what extent? To what extent do I have to give and do more? Because the more I give, the more I stretch myself out, I would be falling into burnout over and over again. And burnout is when, like literally everything in me just shut down, crash and burn. I couldn't function properly. I would be laying out in bed. So to what concept this more has a boundary to it? And I remember when, I think it was about 2018 when I was transitioning from traditional business to the online world of coaching and consultancy. My kids, I have two kids then. So my son Abrar, I think he was around 8 years old, and my daughter Nada was around 5 years old. So I was reading this book from this leader, this prominent leader who is a multiple time New York Times bestselling author. He's a speaker, he's well renowned in the industry. And then his book, it says that you have to work harder and longer to be successful. I think that book was about success. So you have to work harder and longer. And I'm like, okay, it's just, transitioning. I'm like, right, I'm just starting this new business. I'm going to work harder and longer. So I started to wake up a little bit earlier. That's what he tells me to, right? You have to work, you have to come a little bit early, you have to stay a little bit later. Okay, so I work a little bit early, and I end a little bit later, and then I start to work earlier again, and then later, and then earlier, and then later, and then earlier, and then later, to the point that I was sleeping at midnight and I was waking up at 3:30 in the morning. So I was literally having about 3 hours of sleep. And I've got two young kids that, that I'm looking after, with a husband as well, and the housework and everything else. So I was operating in about 3 hours of sleep for times. And I remember that was a moment when, I hit a big milestone in my business, because I worked so hard for it. I hit a big milestone for it. And I remember just as soon as I hit it, like everything in me just crashed. It was just whoosh, crash. And I don't want to do it anymore. I'm exhausted. And then the reason I created an online business was that so I can have freedom. Freedom is my biggest value. Freedom of time, money, energy, choices, physicality, you name it. That freedom is one of my biggest values. But that with my kids, I wanted to be with my kids, right? I want to enjoy that. That's the reason why I left my secure job before. I want to be with my kids. When we moved to America, I left my secure job in Malaysia so that I can be with my kids. I can support my family. But then I come into this world where I have to work harder and longer. And I crash and burn. And then I get mad at my kids. I get mad at my husband. I'm constantly tired. I'm constantly frustrated. I remember when my husband Rizal would come through the door when he comes back from work. The first thing that I would say, not even a hug, not even kisses. The first thing I would say is, babe, look after the kids. I have to work. So I would then rush up upstairs to start working again. After I feed the kid, put them dinner, make them eat, I eat, and I have a bit of bites. As soon as my husband comes back home, babe, I have to work. So I would rush back upstairs and work till midnight, what have you not. So there was a moment when I was like crashed and burned. And I'm like, this is not the way. This is not the way. And more so that, a few years after that, I have a baby. I have another baby, my son Rehan. So when I have my son, it was my third child. It completely changes everything, completely changes everything. Because now I've already got a business. I was already running a business, before with Opera and Nadra. I was, totally focused on them. Now I have a business and now I have a baby. I still have to take care of the household and, take care of the kids. So I had a panic attack, how I'm going to handle all this. And clearly the concept of more, work more, work, work longer and harder, come in a little bit earlier, stay a little bit later, isn't gonna work. Because I have a baby now who is 100% dependent on me. And as cute, as adorable, and such a blessing in our life, is also unpredictable. So when I have calls, like he would be crying, he want a nap, he done the number 2, what have you not. So then I started thinking, what if I can do things less? I can do less things and still get at least the same result or something better or a better result. So I started to think about what can I do, right? So I started to think about what can I do. And one of the part about my business is that I have to face customers. I have coaching with my clients. I give training. I do interviews. I do a training session. I do Facebook Live trainings. An online training with my clients. I have calls. I have, whether it's a sales calls with my client or potential clients. I do have the front side of it. So this front side was the thing that was restricting me a lot. I don't have a lot of freedom of moving around it because my life is based around Rehan and he's unpredictable. And if your mom knows, yes, we have nap times and everything, but they don't always have an on and off button. I wish they do, but they don't. So I started to think about, okay, what can I create? What can I add on? What can I eliminate? So that I can do what I need to do within a short period of time and be productive and effective around that short period of time. So one of the ways that I created was that I look for a daycare for Rehan that I send him 5 hours a week, just 5 hours a week, okay? I want to spend time with him. I want to spend time with him. I want to enjoy him. And more importantly, like daycare is so expensive. I'm like, my God, it's so expensive. So 5 hours a week. So technically I have 4 hours because if you think about it, that 1 hour is for me to go and drop him off and then go and pick him up and come back again, right? So I have 4 hours. What can I do in this 4 hours? If I were to incorporate the 80-20% rule, what can I do in this 4 hours that is 80% of my business? That's 20% of the time that's going to give 80% of my business. So one of the things that I started to think about is that I have to have calls with my clients. 2 things, I have to have calls. I've taken away having calls with non-clients. I don't do sales calls anymore. So I had to create a different kind of funnel to nurture new leads, right? But I made a decision that I was not going to have calls with non-clients anymore. With wannabes, people, not just wannabes, but people who are non-clients. I only want to have calls with my clients. That's the most, that's what I want to be committed and focusing my energy. So I take something away. And when I have calls with my clients, I started to think about, right, how many hours should I put in? I only have 4 hours, right? And there's so many things I want to do interview, coaching, training, and all that. So I started to think about, rather than having 3-4 hours, that's what I had initially for my clients. What if I just have 1 hour, like 2 30-minute session offered every week? Just 2 30-minute session offered every week. Because then I'm really intentional, I'm really focused. My client would know that when they book a time with me, it's really intentional and focused, because there's only 2 times that I have, maybe 3 on some weeks, right? So maybe 2 or 3 30 minutes time slot. So they would know how precious it is, and for them to be committed to be in the call, and for me to be committed to be on the call. So we know when we get on the call, it's going to work. So rather than having 3-4 hours available, I have 2 to 3 30-minute slots. And then that 2 or 3 30-minute slots, I take it away. That is not in that 4 hours, but I put it in 6 o'clock in the morning. So that is kind of like, so I still have free time then to do the things that I needed to do. So that is the concept I've kind of been placing in place and implementing. It just gives me so much freedom. I don't want to work 15-16 hours a day. I don't want to be a slave to the monster that I created. I want to have the freedom. So do less better. Think about how you can take away things in your business rather than adding things. What are the things that you can take away? Like for me, I took 3-4 hours of calls, right? I took away calls with non-clients. I took away calls with non-clients, and I took away the extra hours that I have for my clients, and only focused on less thing. But I do it very intentionally, very focused and powerful. Hope that was helpful, and thank you for joining me in my show. So make sure you catch the next episode. Remember, have the courage to share your voice, because your voice needs to be heard. Take care. May peace be upon you. Bye. 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 Bye.